Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Nice to see you all. Welcome. Today will be myself. My name is Brenda Salazar. I'm a project coordinator with the UFW Foundation. I help support our community colleges project. And with me today is my colleague, Lorena. Lorena, are you available to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm not sure what's going on with my camera, but I'm here. My name is Lorena Vargas. I am the managing attorney here at the UFW Foundation Fresno office. I am also the lead person in charge with assisting and serving Fresno City College students, staff, and faculty with immigration matters. And today we're going to give you more information as to the services we provide. I'm going to start off giving a small presentation on this UndocuAlly Training and what it is. So we will go through some terminology, also some common questions we see from people, survey, some tips that we have, preparedness tips, and also legal services that we provide, and then we will have some time for any questions that you may have. Maybe you'll see students coming to you, or you might see students maybe seeming more nervous, more apprehensive with issues because of what's going on in our communities. So just to give you a little bit of background, there's potentially 11 million undocumented people living in the United States. And when we mean undocumented, we mean people who are here and do not have any type of visa to be here legally. That there is about 4.7 million that is estimated of mixed status households in the US, where you have people who do have visas and other family members who don't have any status. Now, some of the basic terms that you may hear, sometimes people say, wow, all I hear is all these acronyms, or, USC, LPR, EAD, DACA, all these other things. What does it all mean? When we say USC, we're referring to a United States citizen. That is somebody who holds citizenship through birth because they were born here in US soil, or their birth to the US parents, or received citizenship through naturalization. In some cases, the naturalization process of one's parents while the person is still a minor is also another route they can become a citizen. The other term is LPR. A lot of people refer to these as green card holders. So somebody with the green card, that's been a term that has been used for many, many years. And these are immigrants who are allowed to remain in the US indefinitely, absent certain deportable acts. And legal permanent residents can typically apply for citizenship after being legal permanent residents for 3 or 5 years. And note that you have to be a resident before you apply to become a US citizen. Sometimes people are confused, and for instance, we sometimes see people schedule appointments and they say, oh yeah, I want citizenship. Ultimately, that's the goal. But first, you must be a legal permanent resident before you can apply for citizenship. And I say this because oftentimes these individuals who are scheduling the appointments, they don't have legal permanent resident status, and their goal is citizenship. But so that's the two main differences. Now, a non-immigrant person or a non-immigrant, it could be a person who's here temporarily, like for instance, tourists can get a tourist visa to be here for a brief period of time, not to work, not to remain here permanently. It's just for that brief period to visit, or maybe non-immigrant visas for business or employment or academic purpose. So for instance, you're talking about like high skilled workers, or sometimes student, like the student visas, or low wage seasonal workers, temporary workers. That's what these non-immigrants would fall into this category. Now, those, when we talk about undocumented status or documented student, people, we're talking about those without legal status. And when we talk about DACA, many of you may know, DACA is an acronym for Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals was the executive order that Obama executed back in 2012. This extends protections from deportation and provides employment authorization to eligible applicants. It does not provide lawful permanent resident status, and the benefit is renewed every 2 years. DACA is what has been held right now in the courts for a while. There's been litigation on it. But if you hear anybody say, oh, I have DACA, or I need to renew my DACA, this is what they mean. They're under this category. So what are some of the questions we get? Sometimes there are community members that might not understand the process of immigration, and because they don't understand it, because immigration is very complex, they may just ask, well, why don't people just get in line? Why do our people come in here, without status? There are many reasons. First and foremost, those that are here already, note that not everybody has a pathway to lawful immigration status available to them. And this is because each person will have a different situation, a different history that will dictate if there is an immigration remedy for them or not. Now, some people are able to adjust their status. So change their status from a non-immigrant or undocumented person into lawful permanent resident status, right? And that's if they are, for instance, married to a US citizen. That's like the most common thing, because that person can petition for them. So normally, in order to go from not having any immigration status to becoming a legal permanent resident, a qualifying family member needs to petition for that individual. And when I mean a qualifying family member, it means, for instance, an immediate relative. This is where the terminology gets a little crazy. So let's say I'm going to apply, I want to get my legal permanent resident status, right? If I am married to a US citizen, I am an immediate relative of that person, okay? If I am the child, meaning under 21 and not married, of a US citizen, I am an immediate relative, okay? But let's say my spouse is a legal permanent resident, they're not citizens, then they can petition for me, but I am just their spouse. The reason I use the term immediate relative is because for immediate relatives, there is a visa immediately available to them. So for instance, let's say I'm a US citizen and I want to file for my mom, right? And my mom, let's say she's here, has no status, or let's say my mom is in Mexico, doesn't matter, my parent. I can file a petition for my parent because I'm a US citizen, and there's going to be a visa immediately available to them once my petition is approved. What that means is when a visa is immediately available to them, they can then file for their application for legal permanent residence, okay? Now, if it's not a family member who's doing this for me, so let's say I'm a legal permanent resident and I'm going to file for my spouse, we'll be able to file for a visa once a visa becomes available. So you do it through family or through a relative, a spouse. You could do it through parent or child, or US citizens can apply for their siblings. Only US citizens, not legal permanent residents. And you can even file, US citizens can also file for their sons or daughters who are over 21 and who are married or unmarried. Legal permanent residents cannot. That's why it's very important for us to speak to each individual and assess each individual's case. Now, besides a family relative, an employer can also be a petitioner. Okay, so these are through employment-based or through family-based petitions. But note, there are other ways to adjust a person's immigration status that is not family or employment-based, but these are the most common. And some of those we call the humanitarian visas. And we do presentations. I do presentations at Fresno City College about other options for people. And I go into more depth about the humanitarian visas. But this normally will include, for instance, if this may trigger a conversation, somebody who suffered domestic violence by their U.S. citizen or legal permanent resident spouse can file a petition on their own. They don't have to depend on that abusive spouse to file for them, right? Because let's think about this. Let's say I am married to a legal permanent resident and I have no status, and I've been living in this domestic violence relationship for several years or for a while, whatever it is, but I'm being subjected to abuse, and I keep hearing threats. You call the police, I'm going to call immigration and have you deported. Or you report what's going on, and you keep getting these threats. So the cycle of violence continues. Normally, back in the 80s, people were required, or the only way to get their legal permanent resident status is through that abusive spouse. But in 96, through President Biden, back then when he was a senator, he passed a bill. It went through and it created the Violence Against Women Act, which has now expanded to provide a lot of protections for people who are facing domestic abuse by their partners. So that's one type. There are many others, and I can provide more information. If you guys are interested in a presentation, please contact Guadalupe Garcia at the Dream Center. We work together and we provide these presentations as the need arises. Also, like I said before, if the person is an immediate relative, there's no need to stand in line. They don't have to wait for the visa because one is immediately available to them. Next slide, please. So how long does it take, right? For those immediate relatives, it could be as quickly as maybe a year or two, just depending, possibly 3. But typically speaking, people adjusting under family petitions are the ones who are subject to a 20 or more year wait. Yes, 20 or more years waiting for a visa to become available. And a lot of these people have been here for many years and are just waiting for that visa for that date to become current for them to be able to file for a visa. Many who are eligible to file for a visa here in the United States can do so if they entered lawfully, let's say with a tourist visa, for instance, or somebody who had DACA or has DACA, did advance parole, and upon granted advance parole, they later came in and they were paroled into the United States. That parole into the United States, and if that person is married, let's say to a U.S. citizen, they can now file for their lawful permanent resident card, and their wait time is not that much. It's normally about a year in order to get their status here in the United States. Some people are able to do so if they have a petition filed for them back since April 30th, 2001. Yes, over 20 years, but they can do so. So some of the factors, that's fine, you can switch. So who has to wait? Some of the factors in the waiting period, like I mentioned before, the petitioner's immigration status and the degree of relationship between them, right? And the country of origin. Now, I mentioned a lot of the immigration status, like being married to a legal permanent resident versus a U.S. citizen. U.S. citizen, immediate relative, so it'll go fast. If it's also depending on the relationship. So if I am the daughter of a legal permanent resident, and I am unmarried, it's still going to be years, right? The same thing if my US citizen sister is filing for me, it's going to be years. I'm talking about those 20 plus years for a visa to become available, and then for me to be able to ask for that visa, request that visa, right? And this is assuming I'm from Mexico. There are other countries that also take a long time, like the Philippines. And then there are other countries that don't take as much, but right now the processing times are long for a lot of the countries. So when the visa system was created, the government decided to allot less visas for people who were applying from countries who already had a high population rate in the US. And those countries are Mexico, India, China, and the Philippines, which is why they have long wait times. So this is what the table looks like. Oftentimes I explain this to clients when, now they're only going to be looking for or waiting for that visa to become current. I ask them, go to Google and Google State Department visa or visa bulletin. It's going to pop up, and then you're going to just scroll down. And when you scroll down, you're going to look for final action date or family sponsored preferences, right? And then here, if you see, there's all these random dates. Now, when the categories where it says family sponsored, we're talking about first preference, second, third, and fourth. And that just depends on where they fall, what's the relationship, right? So the first preference, for instance, is for for US citizens who have children who are over the age of 21. The F2A and F2B, those are for legal permanent residents, family members. F2A is for the spouse of a legal permanent resident and children under the age of 21 who are unmarried. F2B is for sons and daughters of legal permanent residents over the age of 21, unmarried. Okay, and it's very important to note that legal permanent residents, when they file for their children, if that legal permanent resident never becomes a citizen, that child or son or daughter refers to those who are over the age of 21. So those sons or daughters must remain unmarried. Okay, if they marry, then this visa is terminated, and then they have to file all over again. So for this reason, there are many families where the husband or the couple will not marry because they need to preserve that category, right? They need to stay in this with one of these boxes. They might have been 19 when their legal permanent resident parent filed for them. Then they turned 21, so they jump from 2A to now 2B. And they want to remain in that 2B unless their legal permanent resident parent becomes a citizen. Then they would jump to F1. So this box is a bit confusing, but let's go through one example. So let's say F2A for India, right? So if we have a couple and they're waiting, let's say the legal permanent resident spouse filed for their other spouse, and it was filed before January 1st, 2022, then a visa is currently available. So at their date that they have has to be before the date that's published here. For Mexico, they have to wait a little longer. If you notice, it says May 15th, 2021. Okay, so that's what these dates mean. And there are, in some categories, if you notice, F3 is the year 2000. So it's just what category they fall into. Next slide, please. Okay, so that's another question. Why is DACA always in the news? Well, going back a little bit, on June 15, 2012, President Obama, through the executive order, created deferred action for childhood arrivals. Since then, a federal judge in the Southern District of Texas ruled that DACA was unlawful, and this was on July 16th, 2021. Since then, DACA has been in litigation, going from the district court to the appeals, and then back down to the district court. Since October of 2022, there's pending litigation. We do anticipate a decision to be released sometime this year. So it's going to be on the news again. We are trying to stay vigilant on that because this would affect a lot of students who are currently attending a lot of our colleges. A lot of people out in our communities who've gone to college, have received their degrees or certificates, that are working community members, and this is their only form of relief that they have right now. Right now, DACA recipients can continue to renew their deferred action and their work permits. So when they file the application is to renew their deferred action status, right? And we file also an application to renew their work permits. They go hand in hand. The application fees right now are about $600. And we are strongly encouraging anybody who needs to renew their deferred action status to do so. Even if it's in 5 months, it's going to expire. Talk to us now to start working on that. In the past, the UFW Foundation had funds to cover the cost for deferred action status applications and work permits. However, at the moment, we don't, but we do strongly encourage everybody to still make the effort to renew on time and not let the work permits expire. Just because having deferred action, although it's not a legal status, it is a form of protection because it's where the government can exercise discretion to defer taking any type of action against that individual from removing them from the country. Okay. Earlier today, whether this is true or not, I haven't been able to check, but we heard that there was going to be more presence of Customs Border Protection here in our in Fresno area. And just right before I left to lunch, I heard that they had seen some customs agents near the airports. Well, customs agents are in the airports, right? And anybody traveling normally does have some type of status. But again, this is why it's so important for our deferred action DACA students or DACA recipients to renew their status and their work permits with enough time so that they have their renewal with them. Now, there are many students or many people that I see who seek an appointment and they never file for DACA. And although USCIS is receiving these initial applications, they are not processing them because there is an injunction from that ruling from 2021 from the district court in Texas that said that didn't agree that DACA was lawful. So there is an injunction that does not allow USCIS to process these initial applications. Okay. There sometimes we see DACA recipients whose DACA is going to expire and is getting close to that 1 year deadline. They must file before the 1 year expires, and they should be okay. If they renew their DACA application before the 1 year deadline, so let's say mine expired last year, January 15th, 2024, right? And I come in and I talk to an attorney or a DOJ representative asking to renew. I should be filing it now because I want to make sure it gets there before the 1 year anniversary of when it expired. Otherwise, if they receive it, let's say the 20th or the 21st, it's past that deadline, 1 year deadline, and now it's going to be considered an initial application and I have to file everything all over again. Okay. So some takeaways. Many students and I say students because I work with a lot of college students, because I service students in Fresno City, in Clovis, in Merced, and in Ridley. So it's very normal for me to say students. But a lot of our clients who are DACA recipients worry about the future of their DACA status. Like I said, DACA provides them their work permit and ability to work. Many are able to find better employment opportunities. And in many instances, DACA is the only remedy that they have. And sometimes they're the only ones in their family with the ability to lawfully work. What we can do is encourage them to schedule free immigration consultations to see if there are other options, if there are other forms of immigration relief. Like I mentioned before, if we used to provide a DACA filing assistance fee, right now we don't have it, but some colleges are able to assist, and that would be talking directly with the college to see if the college is able to help some really needy, DACA recipients to renew. There's also you can promote scholarships or other campus programs when you we hear of them to these DACA recipients. And the reason just to reiterate the free immigration consultations, I have been I've seen numerous times where I'm talking to a consultee and they will say, well, my parent already had a consultation and nothing can be done. And I'll ask about them. I'm not interested in the parents at the moment. I'm interested in the individual in front of me. And many times I've met with people, did the consultation, and have found immigration relief. And when I give them information, they're surprised, and they're surprised because it's information they haven't heard before, because they relied on their parents. And I do try to stress to everybody, each person is separate. Each child is separate from their parent, just like each spouse is separated from their spouse. We're all individuals, and each person's immigration history is different from the rest, which is why we treat everybody as individuals to do these consultations, because I have found many times that there's other forms of immigration relief. So some tips on some UndocuAlly tips. Awareness, knowledge, and action. Obtain awareness by opening yourself up to the possibility that some students in your classes or your programs are undocumented, and just stay abreast of basic developments around DACA or any immigration news, the DREAM Act, AB 540, or even more recent news is whether there is more patrol of in our communities from Border Patrol or Customs Border Protection. We just got news that 2 people had been removed. So they were stopped and removed. I believe it happened today. There's been a lot of presence in Kern County. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. We've heard also in Tulare County. So even just being aware of what's going on in our communities is very important, because these issues affect our college community, whether it's students, staff, or faculty. It affects us all. There's sometimes students don't know what to do if they hear that there's a border patrol is in their neighborhood, or are not aware or unsure if their family members are going to come home safely that night. So just being aware of what's going on in our community and communicating is very important. Also taking action, be a visible ally, and work to affect change. Even having we have some posters, and I'm sure the Dream Center has several, where we put, free consultation. There's a QR code and people can scan it on their own discretion and schedule themselves an appointment. But educating ourselves as to what's going on, staying abreast of the news. We anticipate many challenges coming in the next couple of weeks and the next couple of years. So we are only going to be able to get through this together if we have open communication, if we are aware of what's going on, and we take action to support each other. Cultivating inclusiveness. Note that many times, people will only reveal their status or seek aid when they feel comfortable and supported. Confidentiality is key. I cannot stress this enough. Any information revealed to me is kept confidential by the American Bar Association and the California Rules of Professional Responsibility. The same is true to any of our DOJ accredited representatives. And we inform this of any person we are consulting with. It's important for all of us to treat the person the same way you did before you knew their status. So when somebody opens up to you, keep that in mind. They're sharing something possibly very private, maybe something they don't want disclosed to others. So being aware of that, aware of their situation. If they're opening up, let's be supportive. Let's keep that confidentiality. Let's also show them our support by, not changing the way we treat each other or treat them. Do not tolerate derogatory or anti-immigrant remarks, racial bias, or national origin discrimination. It's very key. Also, be vocal about student services and programs that may benefit students. Share information, and that's including emerging services for undocumented and non-citizen students. So the Dream Center, along with the UFW Foundation, we provide, so the Dream Center is our connection to students, staff, and faculty at Fresno City to refer us to them or refer them to us so that we can provide, much needed information, whether that's through a presentation, whether that is through a consultation, whether that is through a workshop, even posting UndocuAlly stickers or campus tailored logos in visible and high traffic areas is very important. Announcing and promoting materials about the resources that are on campus for students, including free events happening in our community or that are information targeted to give to these individuals is very important. So some do's and don'ts. So first, we don't want to use offensive terminology or push students to out themselves. Many students do not refer to themselves as DACA recipients. Please take note of that. Also, ask about how the student or the family arrived to the country. That's something, that's kept confidential normally in a consultation setting, but we don't want to do this in front of others, and we don't want to actually ask them unless we've had that, that trust between them. We don't want to promise to fix everything because there's only certain things we can do. Not make assumptions based on race, ethnicity, or national origin. And we don't expect the student to be our informant or to be your informant or educator on the subject. This is where we have to take that step and learn about what's going on. What we do want to do is be supportive. Ask how you can help. Be considerate of their privacy and become familiar with students and their goals. Undocumented students face unique obstacles to financing their higher education, for instance. They also have fewer scholarship options or internships, fellowships. If you're aware of any organization that is offering fellowships, promote that to these students, because oftentimes that's their only form of income. Guide them to campus resources and trusted external resources. For instance, the Dream Center, nonprofit legal services, financial aid, and other counselors. So I think, Brenda, we're going to talk about our services.
Yes, Lorena, thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna rotate over to just giving you guys some information on what legal services we do provide on campus, more information on how to access those services as well. So we do have a partnership. It's with the California Community Colleges Project. Currently, the UFW Foundation is the immigration legal service provider to over 21 different community colleges across the Central Valley. These are the campuses that are in our Northern Central Valley region, and we have Fresno City College in there, including Ridley, Madera, and Clovis Community. All of these services are free, there is no charge, and they are available to students, staff, and faculty. And we also provide training and educational outreach opportunities, just as today, right? We're here sharing some information. As Lorena shared, we do multiple events, presentations as each campus needs as well. So who qualifies for our services? Again, right, if you're a student, a staff or faculty member currently attending or working at a community college campus in California, students who might be taking a break in semester, they're still eligible. It doesn't take them out of the eligibility. Traditional and non-traditional students are eligible as well. The type of courses does not matter as long as they are enrolled. And in addition, depending on the facts of a case, we may also be able to assist the relatives of students, staff, and faculty. An example can be just as Lorena was talking about, maybe LPR or U.S. citizen who wants to file on behalf of an immediate family member. That is an example of a service that we could help. These are some of the common immigration services that folks are reaching out for. So Lorena has mentioned, right, DACA, if there's the initial application or the renewals, or maybe they're applying for advanced parole, naturalization, parole in place, folks who are applying for a U visa or VAWA visa. Another common one is our special immigrant juvenile status, and there's a lot more that are included, but these are the most common ones that we've seen. So for folks who may be interested in accessing services, it's very simple to make an appointment. You can visit the website, it's findyourally.com. They may also scan this QR code that'll take them directly to that website. You enter in your college campus and it'll show you the availability of appointments. Currently right now for Fresno City, our spring 2025 schedule, there's appointments that are available from 9 a.m. all the way through 4 p.m. The student or staff or faculty member can choose their time. We do offer in-person appointments, which would be on campus, and then also virtual appointments for those who have a preference. So we do have almost 2 to 3 appointments available per month. And again, they can access that by going to our website or scanning this QR code. And then also, if you guys noticed in the chat, Lupe shared the flyer for your guys' campus that has all this information as well. These are our pages, our social media pages, different very helpful websites for you guys as well. If you're interested in learning more, adding to your resource directories, I would encourage you guys to visit these pages, and then also our social media just to be updated with most recent information as well. And now we can definitely open the floor for any questions that you may all have. Lorena, I did see quite a few in the chat if you want to start there.
Before we jump to the questions, I did want to just go back a little bit more and talk about being ready for that immigration appointment, for that consultation. Knowing your immigration history is very important. Having that information ready for the person who's going to assess give you the legal assessment as to your immigration matter is critical. So knowing when you came into the country, knowing if you came in with somebody, or if you came in with a visa or with a fake document, or just getting the story. Having the story is very important. If you have a criminal history is very important. Knowing, where you were arrested, if you were convicted, or if the charges were dismissed. Having those records is also very important. Also, finding or having information if somebody was a victim of a crime and they have a police report, that's critical. So just basic information as to like when a person came into the country, if they have ever been detained, or if they have a run-ins with law enforcement, and if they've been arrested, detained, and charged and convicted, or if charges were dismissed. That's also very important. It's very important to be ready so that the person assessing or having the consultation can provide accurate legal information. Now, that's an appointment for a consultation. And ideally, we want people to be making consultations, giving them information at consultations so that they know what to do and how to prepare, right? And if there's a way for them to seek legal status, perfect. We can follow that path. However, in light of CBP's presence in our communities here in the Central Valley, it's very important to also prepare. Prepare in the event that somebody may be detained. And that's what I talked about earlier a little bit. Being prepared, making a plan. So if, and this is what sometimes you might be seeing students come to you or people come to you saying, what, I've been hearing this, what do I do? I've been reviewing this with several people already. It's a couple of questions. One, determine if that person has an immigration attorney and confirm that it's an attorney, not a notario, not a tax preparer, because we anticipate that there are going to be many people in our communities who are going to fall victims to fraud through notarios, through tax preparers, through people who say they're immigration preparers and they are not licensed. The only agency who licenses is the state board, state of California, and that's licensing attorneys or the Department of Justice through their accreditation program. So make sure people, if they say they have an attorney, it really is an attorney, and direct them to that attorney. If they already have an attorney, direct them to their attorney to give them, it's more specific as to what they can do. Now, on another note, let's say they don't have an attorney. So let's say they say, I don't have an attorney, what do I do? Set them up a consultation so that we can see them. Also, share with them information, direct them to the Dream Center. The Dream Center and myself, we're working together to prepare some presentations, some Know Your Rights presentations, and provide that information so that people know what to do in case they're confronted with a Border Patrol or ICE out in the streets, right? And I know sometimes people will say, well, what if it happens tomorrow? There's only so much we're going to be able to do. Spreading the word, sharing information about our events is key. I was just all morning, I've been talking about I've been in different meetings talking about these Know Your Rights presentations. We will be having a Know Your Rights presentations, and we're going to share the Zoom link. So I'll share the flyer with Guadalupe Garcia, possibly later today, if not by Monday. There's going to be a virtual Know Your Rights presentation. So through Zoom, we also have them at our office at the Fresno office down on Van Ness, 732 Van Ness on Thursdays. The only thing is we have limited space, but if people want to come in, we can definitely help them also. We also know many people also do not want to be going further out if they don't need to, especially if CBP is patrolling our streets, which is why we're also offering Zoom link, which we'll share that flyer. So making sure that they attend our events so that they become more informed of their rights, so that they can exercise their rights, and hopefully that can delay any type of removal or deportation from our country. Okay, so we had questions.
Yes. Let me find the first one, Lorena. So somebody asked, what are the chances that the oncoming administration terminates the DACA program?
So we do anticipate we might not have a good decision on the DACA program. However, it has been mentioned that if it does get terminated, there's still going to be a grace period before it completely terminates. It wouldn't be from one day to the next. So, which is why we are strongly encouraging anybody who needs to renew their DACA status and work permit to do so as soon as possible. Normally, they accept them with 5 months before it expires. At this point, we're telling people, contact us now. If it's going to expire in 7 months, doesn't matter. Contact us now. The other thing we want people to take into consideration is we do have a high volume of people we service. So it's even if you contact us today, it doesn't mean we'll get it done by Monday. It's going to take us a couple of weeks, and depending, because most times we're waiting on the recipient to provide either their social security number or some information that we need, and so we're playing phone tag, right? So just give us time to prepare, but we do want to assist and help those as soon as possible. Now, another thing that I think is very important, especially on our community campuses, is talk to the people in charge, the president and vice president, and hopefully they've already made a statement as to how Fresno City is going to support undocumented students, because that's the biggest way to support our students in our community, right? I've seen it from other campuses. The presidents have already made a vocal statement saying they're protecting or they're going to be supporting our DACA students. They've already been in contact with local law enforcement that they won't be allowed onto a campus. Obviously, if they have a warrant, that's something different, but they're not going to be able to freely reign on campus and start asking or detaining students just like that. The California Community Colleges, there is policy on this, so it would be very important to review that and also just reiterate, the support to students that our California community colleges should be safe and are safe places for them to come and continue their education.
Okay, Lorena, the next question that was in the chat was, it was in relation to when you were speaking about the sightings of ICE and Border Patrol. What does the local police department have to do with this?
This is something we're looking into. We're not sure because some of the information that's coming is, we do have rapid response networks in our Kern County area and in the Fresno area, and we're trying to share information. Sometimes social media is going to the reliability on social media is going to be, a concern because some things may not be accurate. So we're not sure how if it's related at all, but we just want to make sure that we, for instance, for the community college, that the main, for instance, the president or the vice president or those deans, in those positions can either establish communication with law enforcement to ensure that they won't be coming onto campuses without warrants or anything like that. They're not going to be doing any raids there, or just coming to an agreement and communicating with our local law enforcement, whether that be the police department or it's mainly ICE, right? And normally if ICE is going to do something, it's because they have a warrant against somebody's arrest. Unfortunately, if they have the warrant against a person and somebody else is with them with that person and they don't have status, they're going to get caught and they're going to be taken too. So it's really important that we all try to inform our community as to different scenarios that can play out and how if they come into contact, how it could be. If somebody has a warrant and you're with that some person and there was no warrant on you, but you don't have status, you could get picked up too. And it's very likely that they would get picked up also. But that would be very, very important to have that group of those persons in higher position at our colleges make that statement to help our students. The other thing is ensuring that families are prepared, having their documents ready in a safe place in case a loved one is detained. For instance, having their identity documents, medical records, school records, children's birth certificates if they were born here, marriage certificates, documents that can show, or tax records, right? There's a lot of different evidence you can compile that can be prepared in a way to request that the government exercise discretion. So let's say, for instance, several years back, there were a lot of raids in our area, and people were coming into the office saying, "Hey, my husband was detained. Hey, my wife was detained. How can you help me?" Well, we were able to put packets together showing that this person has U.S. citizen ties. For instance, children who are U.S. citizens, children who have medical conditions, children who have learning disabilities or some type of medical or learning disability or anything to that effect, that we can show them why this person they should be given discretion and be released, right? I had one case where the person's child had to have visits to Children's Hospital every month because of a heart condition. And that person had those letters from the doctor, doctor visit, cardiology and all this stuff. So we had that information. We also had proof that they were citizens. We had proof that it was their child, and they were given discretion was exercised, and they were allowed to remain with the family. They were still put in proceedings, but at least they were not shipped out to a detention facility in either Eloy, Arizona, where it has the highest rate of the fastest deportations in our country. People, their due process rights are constantly violated, or all the way in New Mexico, or in other cities all over California. They don't just get picked up here in local Fresno and then sent downtown. But in downtown they're processed, but then from there they get sent out to Bakersfield, where from Bakersfield they're being sent out of the country. So it's very important that we encourage our community to prepare, get their documents in order, and have a plan. For instance, if a relative learns that the parents of minors have been deported, who are the minors going to stay? Have a plan that those minors will be staying with relatives, and then have a plan with the Mexican consulate. So all of this information we're going to be presenting in events that the Dream Center, Guadalupe Garcia, and I are planning, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. I'm just looking for some time on my schedule, and then we can try to make that happen.
Another question, Lorena, was how can we be more visible to our students to show we are in full support?
This is a great question, because I think we can all show support, and either having so we have a lot of, we have some materials, and I know Guadalupe Garcia has materials at the Dream Center. We have like stickers that say, defend immigrant rights. We have some UndocuAlly stickers. We have posters offering more information on the topic, of, exercising people's rights, letting people know that we are supporting immigrants. Many times people think of the idea of an immigrant as somebody with no status. A person here even with a non-immigrant visa, they're only here for a certain period of time, but they're also at risk, because if they commit some type of, they can lose that. It's only going to be a certain period that they're going to have that visa. And sometimes they overstay. So then they're also looking for a way. So just being mindful that, if we're going to be supportive, let's be supportive visually. Also, maybe even courses you're offering or literature that you're offering or suggesting movies that are being shown. I'm going to be going to a showing of a screening of a movie. I believe it's later this month. I'll check into it, but I'll share that information also with you because it's a free event and it's about an immigrant's journey to the United States. So even just being more aware of the hardships people endure to find a better life, and then see how their life turns out here, many times without any support. So just being supportive, understanding that they're going through difficulties, and just giving people time, and providing that, if they do open up, providing that confidentiality with them is crucial.
Thank you, Lorena. There was another question. It says, are we allowed as faculty members to share the information in Canvas as an announcement? I'm not sure, this is more directed towards our Fresno City College staffing.
Yes, I think so.
Okay. So we'll defer to them to answer that. But those are all the questions that are in the chat box. If anybody else has any questions, please do enter them or feel free to unmute yourself.
And also, if you, I've done this for other colleges. If you are, if you have a class where you have students who are interested in knowing more about, what to do in a nice, in a raid, or how can they, protect themselves, or learning more about employment visas, or learning more about humanitarian visas, or just immigration in general, let us know. Contact Guadalupe Garcia and or myself. I'll put my email in the chat, and let me know, and we can go ahead and schedule something for your class.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I was the one asking the question about as we get information, through the college, sometimes, we have information that is passed down from the dean, and I always put that in an announcement. And that's why I was questioning if that was allowed, without pointing out to anyone in a class, just general information that might be valuable for some of our students.
Yeah, I think, Lupita, can you answer that question?
We do share through the Drink Center. We do share some important information to the student that we think it's important, such as these workshops that Lorena was talking about, that whenever we have a workshop about know your rights, so we share that information with our students. So it's like you said, it's not pointing to specific student, but we just give it to them in case they know someone that might benefit from that information.
Okay.
I just wanted to jump on there. I'm a faculty in the EMLS program, so we teach English as a second language. So we work with this population. I always put resources on my syllabus, and this, especially this semester, is going to be one of them. So again, you're not picking out anyone, but you're making it on your Canvas just course available that as part of the resources. So
Okay.
I think that that's totally
Acceptable.
yeah, and then I'm also going to be printing out the flyers that you provided in our particular rooms, just because we serve that population. So
Yeah, I teach a language, and I have many students that come from different
Oh, yeah, yeah.
origins.
Mm-hmm. Same thing, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
The other thing I did want to mention is that the UFW Foundation, we provide free immigration workshops. We provide immigration consultations, and we help people file for their citizenship and renew their DACA applications. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for your time, for your patience. And again, we are here to support Fresno City. Anything that you may think of later or something that comes to you, let Guadalupe Garcia at the Dream Center know. Contact me. I left my email on the chat. I appreciate your time and I appreciate this space. Thank you very much.